Hello, I'm Mrs. Jane. You're welcome to the classroom. In our class today, we'll learn how to pronounce words with OY and words with OI. When you see OY in words, it says OI. When you see OI in words, it says OI. OI says OI, OI. OI says OI, OI. So now that we know that OY and OI says OI, we'll be taking example of words with OY and OI in it. We'll start with words with OY. So our first example is TOY. T says T and OY says OI. Let's sound it together. T, OI. Toy. The next example is BOY. B says B and OY says OI. B, OI, boy. This is COY. C says K and OY says, can I hear you say it? OY says OI. That's right. OY says OI. So let's blend it. K, OI, koi. And our next example is ROY. R says R and OY says OI. R, OI, Roy. I'll leave you with this homework, JOY. I want you to try to pronounce it. Remember that OY says OI. Now we'll go to pronouncing words with OI in it. And our first example is COIL. C says K and OI says OI and L says L. Let's blend it. K, OI, L. Coil. Our next example on OI is COIN. C says K and OI says OI. K, OI. And N says coin. And our next example is VOID. V says V and OI says OI and D says D. Let's blend it. V, OI, D. Void. And our last example is BOIL. B says B. OI says OI and L says L. Bo, OI, L. Boil. And I'll leave you with this homework. OIL. I want you to pronounce it. Remember that OY and OI says OI. When you see OY in words, it says OI. When you see OI in words, it says OI. OI says OI, OI. OI says OI, OI. OI says OI, OI. OI says OI, OI. So always remember that OY and OI make the same sound. They make the sound OI. Try to sound these words JOY and OIL. Practice and you'll get better at it. See you in the next class.